couple months ago, I made a video talking about the new Toyota 86 and how it was going to get a turbo. This is the power of the current generation Toyota 86. And this is the power of the next generation Toyota 86. So a lot of things have actually changed since I published that last video a couple of months ago based on the information that was available back then. Things have evolved a little bit, and so over the weekend there was some photos that popped up on Instagram that somebody pointed me to from an Instagram user called Kai Stefy, I think it is. You've probably seen this in Matt Moran's video too, but I'm going to talk about this from a different angle. My name is Eric and I like to discuss enthusiast vehicles. If that is something you're interested in, please subscribe to get regular updates. We're going to analyze these spy videos, and we're also going to talk about the engine and why it is not going to be a turbo and why it's probably going to be a little bit disappointing for some people. If you enjoy this kind of content, please give this video an early thumbs up. It helps the news get out to people who want to see it. First, let's look at these spy photos that Kai Stefy shot in Detroit, I think, and I want to compare those to the current generation Toyota 86. And also against some spy photos that were shot at the Nürburgring a couple months back in late 2019. In this new spy photo, you can see the whole front end of the car. The front grille is completely covered up. There's a lot of heavy camo on the car too. It's actually covering up the headlights. And if we compare that to the current generation 86 and we look at the front grille, we can see that the front grille on the current generation has these little bumps on the bottom, on the lower part of the grille, and also it has these little side strakes below the headlights. And in the spy photos, it's sort of difficult to see, but I don't see any of those little side strakes, those little things where the LED lights are, and the bottom of the bumper looks kind of flat here too. Now again, we're looking at spy photography, but the overall lines of the car are very, very similar. Now looking at the rear of the car, this is where I'm seeing the greatest differences. We can see with the spy photo, we have a sort of a rounded lip in the back and some taillights that are a little bit difficult to make out, but they do look like they are sort of apart from the body, a little bit like the Supra. We're gonna look at that in a second too. So it's much more rounded in the back. We can see the top part has an arc to it. In the current generation, it is sort of flattened out. It reminds me perhaps a little bit of a Hyundai. That's just kind of my impression. Now the other big thing that I'm noticing here too is the rear haunches, the arch over the rear wheels. Looking at the spy photo, we can see it is quite pronounced. It has definitely sort of an influence again of the Toyota Supra. If we look at the current generation, it is definitely less pronounced. And that's actually one of my biggest criticisms about the styling of the current generation 86. I really love the chassis, I love driving it, but honestly, I think it's kind of bland looking, and I always have. Didn't really live up to the concept car that we saw at the shows prior to the launch of it. And that was always a little bit disappointing for me, but that's kind of how things go from concept to production car. Let's look at the rear of the Supra. So this is my 2020 Toyota Supra. This is about 2 days after I picked it up. And if you look at the fender flares, there is definitely some similarity here. We're seeing, again, we're looking at camouflage here, so this could be a bit of an illusion. I'm not sure if those fender flares are real, but if we take them at face value and we compare them to the Supra, we can see there is a little bit of family resemblance. If we look at the rear taillights, you can see how the taillights kind of come away from the body, a little bit offset. I can see a little bit of that going on too with the spy photo. But especially the rear duckbill, I see sort of a family resemblance there too, although it is a bit of a different style. So in my opinion, Toyota is kind of taking the 86 and bringing it into the GR lineup. This is going to be called the GR86. It's not the GT86 anymore. Subaru is probably going to still call it the BRZ, but the GR is a sub-brand of Toyota. This is their performance division. Right now in North America, we are going to have the Supra and we're going to have the 86, and at some point in the future we are going to get the GR Corolla too. If you're in the UK or in Asia, there is the GR Yaris that's available. So they're kind of expanding this lineup out. It's kind of like BMW M, for example, or AMG at Mercedes. So the Japanese website called NextWeb, and that's where some of this information is coming from, at least some of the spy information. And by the way, if you have some inside information, if you know what's going on behind the curtains at Toyota or Subaru, please contact me on Instagram or also on Telegram. It's completely secure. I'm not going to reveal your information at all. So the previous rumors were that it is going to move over to the TNGA platform. That is the Toyota Next Generation Architecture. And I don't think that's going to happen now. I think that rumor, I'm gonna crush that rumor. I'm gonna put a fork in it. I think that is done. And here's the reason why. You're looking at these spy photos coming out from Detroit. And there's also some other spy photos from the Nürburgring last year. Now the ones from the Nürburgring look like nothing but just a refresh of the existing 8.6. And I think actually kind of what we're gonna get. This is not going to move over to the TNGA architecture, and here's why. A, we're looking at these two vehicles, the new one or the upcoming one and the current one. They look basically the same. I'm not seeing a lot of difference here. This is not a completely reskinned or completely revised chassis. This is clearly based on the same chassis, and it's an interesting chassis because it's kind of an outlier at Toyota. The TNGA platform, which underpins the Corolla, the Camry, the RAV4, the Prius, it basically underpins a lot of different vehicles right now. It's a modular architecture. They can stretch it, they can shrink it, they can do a lot of things, but it is still essentially a front-wheel drive architecture. And to keep the formula of rear-wheel drive inexpensive, relatively low horsepower, they really need to keep a version of the same architecture that they have right now. Now, right now, the BRZ and the 8.6 is actually not built by Toyota. This is a partnership. Of course, Toyota does partnerships. It's a partnership with Subaru, and it is currently built in Japan, and I'm going to butcher the name, but at Ota, Japan, in the Goma prefecture. So that's the plant that it's made in. Now we got to look at where the 8.6 and the BRZ are positioned in the marketplace. Not a high volume car. This is not competing with the Mustang, the Camaro, or even the Supra. This is a low volume enthusiast vehicle. This is not even competing with the Subaru STI, for example. Again, low volume. So Toyota is not going to invest huge to move it over to the TNGA architecture. They're going to build half of it and then ship the other half over to Subaru. I'm pretty certain that Subaru is going to continue building this vehicle because this is a little bit like the Supra. This is a low volume car. This is an enthusiast vehicle. So it's another argument. It's another point in the argument that says this is going to be a continuation of what we currently have. So here's the part that's going to make some people upset, maybe a lot of people upset, but this is just my opinion. So the current 8.6, 205 horsepower, 156 pound-feet with a famous torque dip. It has been improved quite a bit in the later generations, but it does have this torque dip. Basically, while you're accelerating, there's a noticeable drop in torque. This is much more noticeable in the manual transmission. And the rumor has it from this Japanese publication that the engine in the 8.6 is going to be the FA24 from Subaru. Now currently there is a version of the FA24. It's a 2.4 liter, of course, and it makes 260 horsepower and 277 pound-feet of torque in the Subaru Ascent and also the Outback. Now this is obviously a turbo engine, and this is a brand new engine, and actually it looks like Subaru is going to get this up to maybe close to the high 300 horsepower range for the next STI. But that's not what we're going to get in the 8.6 BRZ twins. To understand this, we need to look at where the Supra first is positioned in the Toyota lineup. So on the Toyota side, not the Lexus side, it is the Halo car, right? So the 3.0 Supra starts at about $51,000. It has a 3-liter engine, makes 382 horsepower. Now, it moved up from last year. From 2020, it was making 335 horsepower. And there's a reason why they bumped it up, and it's not just to, well, partly to increase sales, but partly to position these vehicles so they're a little bit farther apart. So we have the 3.0, and then down below that, Toyota introduced the 2.0 Supra just a couple months ago. It's got the 2-liter BMW engine. It is the B48 engine. And in the Supra, it makes 255 horsepower, but 295 pound-feet of torque. Now the weight in the 2.0 Supra is quite a bit lighter. It's 3,181 pounds according to Toyota. The 3.0 is 3,400 pounds. And actually in reality, it's quite a bit lighter. It's around 3,325, something like that, with a quarter tank of gas according to people that have measured them. So the price of the 3.0 is about $51,000. The 2.0 is $43,000. So now we look at the current generation 86. That is priced a starting price of $27,000. And it weighs about 2,776 pounds. Let's just call it 2,800 pounds. So the power to weight ratio of that is 13.5 pounds per horsepower. And it has way less torque than the 2.0 Supra. It's about half the torque, right? 295, 156. It's also available with a manual transmission. And if you're familiar with modifying the BRZ, the FRS, the 86, the current transmission, the manual transmission, cannot handle more than about 240 pounds-feet of torque before things start to break. Part of the reason why the 86 is so light is because the transmission is not designed to handle a huge, big, beefy engine with a lot of torque. It's a relatively lightweight transmission. So back to the Supra. So we have between $27,000 for the 86 and $43,000 for the Supra. We have a $16,000 difference, and also a weight difference. So let's, for a second, indulge me. Let's enter the hypothetical zone. So let's say that the upcoming 86, the GR86, is going to make, let's say, 260 horsepower. Let's say they take this FA24 engine directly from Subaru with the turbo, and they drop it into the 86. So that's going to change the formula quite a bit. I don't think it's going to remain at the 2,800 pound point. I think it's not even going to stay at 2,900 pounds. Once you start adding power, you need to have a beefier transmission, you need to have bigger brakes, you need to have more reinforcements in the chassis. There's a lot of things that you need to do to reinforce the car essentially to be able to handle the power and remain under warranty and not break down after a short period of time. But let's say hypothetically that it goes up to 3,000 pounds or 2,900 pounds. Let's be super optimistic and say it's only 2,900 pounds. So that's 11.5 pounds per horsepower. Now the 3.0 Supra, which weighs 3,400 pounds, is 8.9 pounds per horsepower. We're kind of getting a little bit close to the 3.0. The current generation 86, 2,776 pounds, makes 13.5 pounds per horsepower. There's a big difference there between the 3.0 Supra and the 86. So the 2.0 Supra, that's making 12.5 pounds per horsepower. So it's kind of in the middle, kind of a little bit lower down. But I think it's very clear we have the $16,000 difference if Toyota put a 260 horsepower engine into the 86, GR86. It is going to cannibalize sales of the lower priced Supra at $43,000. If they bring in, remember it's $27,000 right now, if they bring it in to, let's say, $30,000 and they bump up the price and the performance, we're going to be looking at something that is now $13,000 away but has essentially the same or better performance than the 2.0 Supra. That's not going to happen. Instead, what we're most likely going to get, remember this is the hypothetical zone here, is the 2.4 liter engine making maybe 220 horsepower tops. I think we're going to see more torque out of it because it is a bigger displacement engine. I'm thinking 180 to 200 pounds-feet of torque, naturally aspirated. And we got to look at who Toyota is targeting for this vehicle. Remember the GR lineup, the GR sub-brand, is targeting enthusiasts, right? And we know that enthusiast vehicles don't sell particularly well. They are definitely a niche. Enthusiast vehicles have kind of gone down in market share dramatically in the last 20 years, unfortunately. So if you're in the UK, you can get the GR Yaris. Now the GR Yaris has the same powertrain that the upcoming GR Corolla is going to get. It is about 30,000 pounds for this vehicle in the UK. You do a little conversion, that's about $40,000 US. So the GR Corolla is going to be coming to North America. It's going to slot above the GR86, and I'm thinking it's going to be priced in the high $30,000 range. So this is not a big surprise. All manufacturers kind of separate their vehicles. They want to have a price, performance, luxury, sort of class separation. Porsche does this very famously with the Boxster and Cayman combination. For the longest time, the Cayman and the Boxster were, in performance-wise, well below the 911. It's only much more recently with the introduction of the GT4, which is a high-performance version of the Cayman, that the performance started to encroach upon the 911 territory. But the price is also commensurate. The new GT4 is about $100,000, and that is where a base 911 starts too. So you're getting up into 911 performance territory, and you're also getting up to that same point in price. But for the longest time, they have separated the power and the capabilities of the vehicle so that there is a significant difference, and Toyota is doing this as well. So if you're upset that it doesn't have a turbo, you should probably look elsewhere or install one yourself. That's kind of my approach to things. So when are we going to see this? We're looking at a spring 2021 launch of the vehicle, probably going to go on sale a little bit later that year as a 2022 model. Remember, right now you cannot order a GT86 anymore from the factory. They have stopped taking orders as of July. Production has ended. They need to retool the plant in order to get ready for the next round of production. Definitely expect a manual transmission. There's going to be an automatic as well. Also expect to see a version of Toyota Safety Sense. I think it's going to be the Subaru EyeSight system. Toyota Safety Sense, if you're not familiar with it, is a suite of capabilities that is available in pretty much every Toyota right now, including adaptive cruise control and lane keeping assist and all these sort of safety features. So I think we're going to get that too. So really what we're looking at is a continuation of the same formula. Who's the main competitor here? It obviously is the Mazda Miata. We're talking about a relatively lightweight car with a relatively unpowerful power plant, manual transmission designed to go around corners and designed to improve you as a driver, not designed for street racing, not designed to do pulls on the freeway, at least not in stock form, and also be fairly inexpensive. That is who the market is. That's who they're going to continue going after. It's a real driver's car. That's who they're focusing on. My name is Eric. If you want to stay up to date with more videos like this, there's a couple more on screen. Please click one, and I will see you very soon.